Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're tackling something that has literally exhausted people for generations, figuring out God's will. We're going to be leaning on Dr. Gary Meadors' theological framework to see how we can finally stop stressing over finding some secret future plan and actually start making wise life decisions.
Here's our roadmap for this one. We'll hit the will of God myth, look at sovereignty and secondary causes, unpack the revealed moral will, jump into a fascinating case study on Paul and the future, and wrap it all up with the transformed mind. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Section 1, the will of God myth.
Now, what is God's personal will for me? Man, this is the exact question that burns out so many believers. You know the exact feeling I'm talking about, right? You're working 50 hours a week, you come home completely drained, and then you're agonizing over finding the absolute right path or the perfect choice for your life. But here's the massive reality check from our source material. Seeking a secret sign about your future is actually the completely wrong approach.
There's a vital separation we have to notice here because it's a real game changer. On one hand, you've got God's secret will. This is his sovereignty, his macro-level control. Like the book of Deuteronomy says, the secret things belong to the Lord. But on the flip side, we have God's moral will. These are his revealed instructions for how we ought to behave, and they are sitting right there in the text.
And that brings us to this absolutely crucial point. The Bible never actually tells us to find God's will ahead of time. It always tells us to do it. The burden is not on you to divine the future or decode some hidden roadmap. The burden is simply on you to perform the ethical instructions God has already clearly laid out. Honestly, if someone asks what God's personal will for you is, you can just point them straight to the scriptures.
Moving on to Section 2, sovereignty and secondary causes.
Okay, to really grasp this, we need to talk about the concept of a decree. Now, it sounds super formal, but it basically just means God's eternal counsel laid out before creation. But here's the key. It is not some simplistic, robotic predestination. He foreordained the world purposefully, in a way that actually includes human freedom. And importantly, he planned it all out without being the author of sin.
We also really need to untangle these two terms because people mix them up all the time. Sovereign refers to God's status over creation. It means he's the ultimate authority, the boss. Providence, on the other hand, is God's active management within that creation. Understanding both his overarching status and his hands-on management really clears up how the world actually operates day to day.
And this perfectly sets up the concept of secondary causes. Dr. Meadors uses a pretty stark example here. Say a drunk driver goes down the wrong side of an interstate and causes a horrible tragedy. Well, who caused it? The driver did. God's ultimate plan incorporates human freedom and culpability, meaning individuals are still 100% responsible for their own actions. The liberty of those secondary causes hasn't been stripped away. It's intricately woven right into the design.
Let's look at Section 3, the revealed moral will.
So, if we aren't supposed to be decoding secret decrees and trying to figure out how secondary causes are operating behind the curtain, where do we actually find the guidance we need? Well, you've probably heard this famous quote from 1 Corinthians 2:9. No eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. People read this all the time and mistakenly assume it's this beautifully poetic verse about what heaven will look like someday. But actually, that's a massive misinterpretation.
Dr. Meadors clarifies that this passage is really about epistemology. That's just a fancy theological term for how we know truth. It's explaining how God revealed his truth to the apostolic community through the Spirit, which was then permanently recorded right there in Scripture for us. So the things prepared aren't golden streets and harps up in the sky. They are the revealed truths in the Bible that are meant to guide our ethical behavior right here, right now.
Which brings us to Section 4, Paul and the future.
Let's follow a fascinating case study from Acts 21. Paul is traveling. He goes from Tyre, arrives down in Caesarea, and crashes at Philip the evangelist's house. While he's there, a true prophet named Agabus vividly reveals the exact future to him. Agabus literally binds his own hands and feet to make the point, and says, basically, look, if you go to Jerusalem, you will be bound and incarcerated.
Now, everyone weeping there in the room, and maybe us reading it today, fully expected this dire prophecy to totally alter Paul's plans. I mean, if you knew going to a specific city meant an automatic jail sentence, you'd stay home, right? No way! Paul goes anyway. He flat out says he's ready to be imprisoned or even die. And this highlights a massive takeaway for us. Knowing the future does not override your moral obedience and worldview.
Advanced knowledge of the future is simply not a valid criterion for making decisions. Paul's commitment to the gospel completely trumped his desire for personal safety.
Finally, Section 5, the transformed mind. So, if trying to figure out the future is a dead end, and God's secret will is, well, a secret, what's our actual path forward? The ultimate solution here is cultivating a transformed mind through a disciplined, rational process. First, you gather biblical data. Then, you filter that data through a solid biblical worldview and set of values. And that is what allows you to arrive at meaningful, wise decisions. You don't just sit alone in a dark room waiting for a mysterious voice to drop a personalized life plan in your lap. You actually have to engage your mind with the text.
Obviously, this takes some serious effort. It demands the 3 R's of wisdom. Read the scriptures, research the context constantly, and rely heavily on repetition. You've got to think critically with self-conscious deliberation. The goal is to develop clear lines of reason from A to Z. So when you're facing a modern issue that the Bible doesn't address directly, like say a massive career change or a complex family dynamic, you aren't just taking a blind leap in the dark. Instead, you're thoughtfully applying timeless values to your very specific situation.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Are your life choices based on an exhausting, stressful search for future signs, or are they based on doing the rigorous work to apply biblical wisdom today? Will you keep trying to decode God's secret future, or will you embrace the liberating, albeit challenging, work of transforming your mind through His revealed Word? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep studying, keep transforming that mind, and I will catch you in the next one.